What is up, everybody? This is the Higgs from MMOplay.com, and today we are going to be reviewing the latest expansion from World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor. Now, we've broken this review down into a few separate pieces. Right now, you are looking at my undead Shadow Priest Jessie Mora, sort of in Transmoggy gear at level 100. She will be one of our two guides for this review. Let's start talking about this expansion. The first thing I want to talk about is just the questing and lore in this expansion, how you move throughout this new universe, which is Draenor. And in terms of questing and lore, the questing is more streamlined, more enjoyable than it has ever been, without a shadow of a doubt. I have absolutely no hesitation in claiming that is the case. It is absolutely true in my experience. Now, my experience is I came in right at the tail end of Burning Crusade and the beginning of Wrath of the Lich King. That's when I started playing WoW. So you can keep that in mind throughout the rest of this review, that is my experience with the game. I've been playing more or less straight through since that time. So in my experience in that time, the end of Burning Crusade up until now, this is the best the questing has ever been. It was a surprise to me when I hit level 100. That's never happened to me before in any expansion, where I was shocked when I hit the level cap because I was having so much fun leveling. Even my favorite expansion before this one, which is Wrath, I still remember grinding out the last level or two to get to max level back then. So leveling, questing, super duper cool. In terms of questing, I do want to talk about the zone that you're in, Draenor. In case you don't know, Draenor is Outland from Burning Crusade, but before it was destroyed. So for instance, right now we are flying over Shattrath City. If you remember Shattrath City from Burning Crusade, it don't look like this. It's very destroyed. This is Shattrath pre-destruction. Part of the great thing about questing and the lore experience, and the experience in general in this game, in this expansion rather, is being able to see the universe around you before it was destroyed by opening a bunch of portals and doing a bunch of dumb stuff. Speaking of that, another cool thing about this expansion, speaking of opening portals and doing dumb stuff, is that you get to meet all those people who opened portals and did dumb stuff back then. All those orcs, the warlords themselves, each have dedicated zones or interesting dungeons, and you get to meet them all. You meet them very early. You meet them relatively well, each one, some more than others. For instance, if you're a horde starting out, you're going to get a lot more experience with Thrall's father out with the Frostwolf clan, or if you start Alliance, you're going to get to learn a lot more about the Shadow Wolf clan right at the start. So there are some differences depending outside of the warlords themselves, which are very cool storylines. There's a lot of cool external storylines, the Arakoa, the ogres, a lot of cool lore to explore that you're going to be familiar with from Burning Crusade and other places in the game. So, in terms of questing and lore, it is the best it's ever been. The way they deliver all these storylines is more streamlined and more interesting, a lot of cutscenes, a lot of cool cinematic-y things happening. No complaints on questing or lore from this guy. I very much enjoyed it. The time travel stuff, Chris Metzen and the rest of the team at Blizzard said at BlizzCon, don't worry about the time travel. I know it sounds weird. It's not that weird. We won't focus on it that much. I, like everybody else, was like, what? How could you not focus on it that much? It's true what they said. I think you sort of exist in an alternate reality, and that's all you need to know. It's not like what you've done in the past is going to affect the future of Azeroth, because the only direct link between current Azeroth and all the stuff happening in Draenor is that the Iron Horde is pouring through the Dark Portal trying to destroy or overtake Azeroth. Now there should be an interesting question that is raised in your mind, which is, well, what are the stakes? If what you're doing doesn't have any effect on Azeroth, what's the point in doing it at all? You stop the Iron Horde invasion pretty soon into Azeroth. After that, the connection between the two worlds is more or less severed. So that is really, if I do have a gripe in terms of lore and storyline, that would be the only one. That what are the stakes? Why are we bothering with all this if there is no Dark Portal, if the Dark Portal is dealt with pretty early on, and if there are no stakes for current Azeroth? I actually believe we're still relatively early in the expansion. It's only been out since November, so it's only been out a couple months now. I believe that there will be a direct threat to present itself. The way the lore is going right now, there are one, maybe two chief characters that I think could sort of take over the mantle of the primary villain. Unsure at this point which one of those two is going to do it. I have my suspicions, but I think either one of those characters poses a big threat to Azeroth and could easily establish a link to Azeroth and really cause a whole lot of pain. So, yeah, story lore, that's my only thing. What are the stakes? But I think we're going to find out what those stakes are as the expansion goes on. So, questing lore, I got to give it full marks. Great, great, great expansion for questing and lore if you're into that sort of thing. Next thing I want to talk about is sort of a miscellaneous category. There's a few things that happened in this expansion that don't really fit in any other categories because they're new. The first thing I want to talk about is no flying. If you've noticed, I am riding around on my little armored boar. There is no flying in this expansion. You can use this little feathery thing somewhere in my inventory, Avianus feather, to sort of fly, and this is what that looks like. It is something you get from your Garrison, which is what a feature we're going to be talking about later, and shoots you way up in the air, and you can sort of, kind of fly. If you're really good at this, you could probably like get across a whole zone doing it. I'm just going to go to this nice level place up here because I don't want to fly across a whole zone. But yeah, this is as close to flying on a flying mount as you are going to get. There's obviously still flying masters. But yeah, flying itself is done on flying mounts in Draenor. A lot of people have a problem with this. It is still a hot issue. People are still debating it months after the release of the thing. I enjoy it. I don't want to fly. I never really liked flying outside of the old world because I thought, what was the point? I mean, flying, it's basically porting, you know, from one place to the next. And the only time I want to do that is when I already know the content inside and out and I don't want to experience it. Well, Draenor, you don't know the content in and out, and there's so much of it. Experiencing it on the ground level is really, really cool, I think, and I'm glad. I would actually not really care a whole lot if I could never fly in Draenor, because truth be told, again, this is something we're going to talk about in Garrisons, going out into the world, into Draenor, after you hit max level and are beefing up your Garrison isn't as big a thing as it was in previous expansions. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So I'm okay with no flying. I think I'd be okay with no flying in the future. So yeah, that's first thing in miscellaneous. Next thing I want to talk about is Garrisons. Now that we're there, let's have a chat about it. Garrisons, I'll just pop my Garrison Hearthstone. You get one of those. Super duper cool. You can have your Hearthstone set to one place, your Garrison set to your Garrison. Very nice feature. Here's all your Warlords. Garrisons are a brand new feature added in this expansion. They are essentially hubs for your tune. You can have them in two zones if you're Alliance or Horde. In the Horde, it is in Frostfire Ridge, this super coldy, sort of barren place. And if you are Alliance, you have it in Shadow Moon Valley. Up around there is where the Alliance Garrison is. Garrisons are a collection of buildings that you get to choose between via your architecture table. You have large, medium, and small buildings. Each building and your garrison itself, which is controlled by the town, or the Great Hall rather, has 3 tiers, and you get to level up each building, level 1, 2, and 3. For instance, you see the barracks is level 2, waiting for an upgrade, whereas the gym boutique is level 3, all the way maxed out. And for leveling up, you get various things. So you level up this building, and no, it's not going to show me what you get, but you do get different perks depending on what level your building is at. All right, so leveling up buildings is very cool. The cool thing about buildings, though, and the cool thing about garrisons in general, is that there is no one solution. And I would say this is a positive mark for Warlords of Draenor in general, that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to anything in Warlords of Draenor, not like there used to be in Warcraft. In World of Warcraft, previous expansions, you know, if you were a Shadow Priest, for instance, you play in a specific way. Now, there are really 2 ways to play the Shadow Priest and get pretty good DPS, and they both have their benefits and drawbacks. Obviously, Shadow Priests have always sucked at AoE, so they're still going to of stuck at AoE. There's nothing you can do about that. But there's a cool new way to play Shadow Priest if you want to, and it's completely viable as a raid spec in my opinion. Some other raid leaders would say it's not viable, but there's a new way, a completely new way, and then you can still play the old way that involves damage over time, a lot of dots thrown on targets and using your insanity buff. But the new way has virtually no dots, and it is all burst damage, and you can totally play that way if you want. The point here is that like AoE, like the DPS rotation for the Shadow Priest, and like Garrisons, there is no one size fits all in Warlords of Draenor. Now obviously that is a general statement, and there are some places where you obviously want to have some certain things laid out, but so much of Warlords depends on your playstyle. And I think the best way to illustrate this is through the use of garrisons themselves. For instance, you know, you only have a certain number of plots, and that number of plots expands based on what level your garrison is. Now, the kinds of buildings you are using are completely up to you, or at least for the most part. Everybody gets a mine, or a garden fishing spot and pet menagerie. Everything else, and town hall, everything else, all these buildings over here are completely up to you. So, for me, because I'm more of a PvEer, the Frostwall Tavern is great because it gives you a bunch of cool quests to do in heroics and get gear and cool little, that's where I got the Aviana's Feather from. Cool little just side things. You know, the barracks is great for me because I like having the followers. I like increasing. I'm trying to get a bunch of follower achievements. So it's a great building to have in that slot. A storehouse is great because I like having a bank. You could also equally go with some other stuff. Salvage yard is great because it gives you random loot. The point here is that you change buildings, or you can change buildings as you go. For instance, my barn, I can assign a follower to that building there. See, now I've got a follower working there, which will give me a follower buff. My barn, for instance, I just traded out. My barn is brand new. It used to have a lumber mill, which generates resources to expand your garrison. I traded it out because I'm getting to a point with my garrison where I don't need a whole lot of resources, and now the barn will generate a resource that will allow me to craft epic gems or jewel crafting items. So I need the barn now. I didn't need the barn yesterday. The barn, and these things take longer than a day, obviously, to grow. Over here is the barn, my brand new. This is a level 2 barn, so it's not fully upgraded yet, but it's pretty new. I need the barn now, so I added that to my garrison. There's a lot of tweaking, a lot of playing around with things in the garrison, figuring out what works for you, for your play style, and I actually think that is fantastic. It makes your garrison feel much more like it's yours, much more like you are in control of it, and that is really, really cool. This is the way the Horde garrison looks. I'll go ahead and log off, and you'll get to meet the other tune that we're going to be exploring Warlords of Draenor with. Not quite level 100 yet on this other tune, but it is an alliance tune. This is Paradoxical, level 94, Ret Pally, and I will show you the alliance garrison. This is only a level 2 alliance garrison, so it's not leveled up nearly as much as the Horde garrison you saw. But just to give you an idea, this is again in Shadow Moon Valley, which is very shadowy and purple and misty, and so this is the garrison for the alliance. It also has the same more or less features of here's your town hall, same features more or less. You got your same buildings. You got your you know, your fishing spot, your mining place, your herb garden. So yeah, same more or less features. What I will say about the garrisons, I really, really enjoy them. There is a bit of a downside. If you see on the bottom left here, we are connected to Trade Chat. If you have a trading post in your garrison, I believe you can upgrade it to have an auction house as well. I don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure. Which means that there's really no point in going to the major cities anymore. There is a new major city in Ashran, one for Horde and one for Alliance, but there's really not a whole lot of point in going there other than to do a few looty things, getting some upgrades on some gear and whatnot. So if there is a downside to garrisons, it's that it does sort of take you out of the world and take you out of the major cities and sort of put you on your own in your garrison. A lot of people say that takes away from the socialness of the experience of having major cities. If I'm being completely honest, I haven't felt very social in a major city in quite a long time. So I didn't really feel like I lose a lot. I feel like if you're doing a comparison between would I rather have the cool garrison single player experience or the minimal socialness that I had in major cities in the last few expansions, I take garrisons any day of the week, twice on Sunday. So I prefer the Garrisons, but if there's a downside, there is that. So that's the end of our sort of miscellaneous talk about things that are new in Draenor that don't really fit into other categories. Next, let's talk about heroics. Heroics are very, very, very cool in Warlords of Draenor. There are a lot of them. Here you've got Aachen Dune, which you should recognize from Burning Crusade. It is pre-destruction Aachen Dune. Upper Blackrock Spires, another re-release. Lots of cool bosses in here. Very cool layout. Very similar to the old Upper Blackrock, but with some new stuff thrown in there too. And the rest of these are all new dungeons. Skyreach, Everbloom, Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, Bloodmoon Slag Mine, Blood Mole, Slag Mines, Grimrail Depot, and the Iron Docks. Each one has a very cool story, a lot of cutscenes in there. And the great thing that I like about these dungeons is that a lot of the Warlords themselves storylines are resolved in the heroics. For instance, you'll see in the last boss of Shadowmoon Burial Grounds, the last boss is Ner'zhul. There's another one, Aachen Dune. The last boss is Terrangor. Not technically a warlord, but pretty close. And a lot of these places have final bosses that either contribute to or are directly the storylines of the warlords. I think the heroics are the best they've ever been. Again, I came in at the end of Burning Crusade, so I didn't really get to experience Burning Crusade heroics as they were relevant, but I think for my money, these heroics are more interesting story-wise. The actual mechanics of the heroics are more interesting. They are gorgeous. Every single one of them is fantastic. And I'm actually going to do a quick little rundown of, let's do Aachen Dune, take you through that so you can see what it's like pre-destruction and get you a little taste of what Aachen Dune, what a heroic is like.
We will report to him.
Alright, so this is Aachen Dune, pre-destruction, probably one of my favorite heroics, just because it's got some cool mechanics, and it's a cool dungeon. You see all these people, it doesn't actually start out as a dungeon. You go and you fight the first boss, and then all these people that you see, well, most of them anyway, turn into enemies, and very cool, very pretty dungeon, looking up, looking around, very cavernous, nice high ceilings like an iron forge or something like that. Obviously, Aachen Dune, a Draenei stronghold, a lot of Draenei lore, Nairu stuff going on in here. But I've always thought the Draenei were probably the most aesthetically interesting of the Alliance races. Probably why my main Alliance tune is a Draenei. So yeah, I don't mind all the Alliance art. I think it's really beautiful. It reminds me a lot of Burning Crusade, but it's sort of like an evolved Burning Crusade. You know, I look around this and it does sort of remind me of like you know, some of those Burning Crusade dungeons. I'll just skip past that little cinematic right there. Don't want to spoil anything for anybody. So this is the first boss fight we're coming up on, and it's a pretty interesting fight. This is just trash we're pulling right now, but the boss fights in general in here are really cool. You know, they're not too complicated. You know, if you're looking for an extreme amount of difficulty, Aachen Dune probably isn't the way you want to go. But yeah, I enjoy Aachen Dune. I think it's very, very cool. I'm shooting an ally there. That's the danger of recording and playing at the same time. You can make a lot of mistakes. So I will just call it. I just wanted to show you a little bit of Aachen Dune so you can see what a heroic looks like. You can see I'm mind controlled now, so there's a lot of cool, this is just trash too. There's a lot of cool, interesting mechanics going on in these heroics and in Aachen Dune in general. So yeah, that is Aachen Dune. And now let's get back to the main review. Alright, so you have seen Aachen Dune, and you see how cool the heroics are, how pretty they are, how wonderful everything is in the heroics. Next, let us talk about raids. The only real raid out right now is Highmaul, which is the one that was released. It's an ogre raid, a lot of ogre lore going on there, and also you deal with a little bit of warlord lore with Kargath, who is the one-handed, gray-skinned warlord. So Highmaul so far very, very cool. It features, I believe it is the longest, hardest boss fight in Warcraft history, and that is the final boss there, Imperator Marguk. very, very interesting, challenging fight. Very long. Takes a super long time to do that fight. I've done it a few times, and every time I'm like, is this over? Jeez. In terms of raiding in general, the High Maul raid, there is another raid out right now, which is the Molten Core re-release. Not really relevant to the expansion, more relevant to WoW's 10th anniversary, so I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot. I will say it's not really that great, the Molten Core, in my opinion. It's basically just a re-release of the original. Everything's 100, level 100 now, though. Takes a super long time, lots of wipes. People don't pay a whole lot of attention. LFR, looking for raid, not really that great to go through Molten Core. While we're on the subject of LFR and High Maul and relevant raid content, LFR has been seriously nerfed in this expansion. LFR is very, 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 very easy now. This is to cater towards casual players. LFR gives you quote-unquote tourist mode. It basically allows you to see the content without having to have the challenge of the content. I am on the side of this being completely fine with me. I know a lot of people, this has been really a trend that's been happening in Blizzard and World of Warcraft for some time, moving toward the idea of embracing casual players and treating casual players with some measure of more respect and more opening and welcoming arms. Because, and this is why I'm on the team of this is completely fine with me, because treating casual players with open arms does not necessarily mean that you sacrifice difficulty. I'm okay with it. And what do I mean by that? I mean LFR is stupid easy. Stupid easy. Normal difficulties in raids are pretty easy. Once you get past normal, things get hard. So the point is that if you still want the challenge, you can get it, but not having the challenge doesn't necessarily exclude you from enjoying the content. So you can be a relatively casual player, and as long as you pay for your subscription, you can still enjoy the content, even if you don't enjoy it at the maximum difficulty or at even harder difficulties. I'm fine with that because the harder difficulties are still there. You still get into them the same way as you would have in the past. You can pug a group or you can do your guild. So not a whole lot has changed there. High Maul is extraordinarily difficult when you get into the higher difficulties. No love lost there for difficulties in raids. It is hard. So yeah, raiding is awesome, and the LFR nerf, I am completely okay with it, and I'm completely okay with embracing casual players in general, which has been a trend for Blizz. Now I'm going to jump over and show you just a little bit of High Maul. This is the LFR High Maul, so enjoy. We're just going to talk a little bit about High Maul and how cool it is. So yeah, here's a little bit of High Maul. Alright, so this is the Colosseum. This is the High Maul. This is the LFR version. So, warnings about the difficulty. It's going to be a little bit different. This isn't the beginning of High Maul. This is the second wing. But I just sort of wanted to show you a little bit of what the raid in general looks like. Again, LFR, just pointing that out. It's important to keep in mind. So High Maul is, I believe it is up in Nagrand, however you want to say it, in the geography of Draenor. I believe it's in Nagrand. A lot of ogre lore, as I said. And very well laid out, very cool dungeon. The three separate wings of it, or raid rather, the three separate wings all feel very, very different. I believe the second one is called the Arcane Sanctum, if I am remembering correctly. Let's see here. It is, yeah, Arcane Sanctum. That's where we're at now. And we are waiting to pull. Don't you hate that? Come on, let's pull, let's go. So yeah, even though very, very easy, it's still, I think, entertaining. LFR is, and High Maul certainly is really, really interesting. Or at least I'm enjoying it. So yeah, this is High Maul. This is what High Maul looks like. I just want to give you a little bit of a taste of what the raids themselves are looking like in this expansion. Very, very cool raid High Maul is. So yeah, this is High Maul. Let's get back to the rest of the review now. Welcome back. That was Hi Mall. I hope you enjoyed what you saw there. The last thing I want to talk about is PvP. If I do have a serious complaint with Warlords of Draenor, it is in PvP. I am not a big PvPer. You know, I do a battleground every now and then. I've done a little bit of arena stuff, but I'm certainly in the casual range of PvPer. For my money, the PvP in Warlords of Draenor thus far is absolutely abysmal. There is a big WoW 10 anniversary battleground that you can do, but again, I don't really consider that relevant content because it's just for the anniversary. The other big PvP zone is Aachen. There are a few issues with Aachen. Chiefly, the big issue has been queue times. I actually didn't experience that. Like I said, I'm not a big PvPer, so I just got into Aachen to experience it, to do this review on the game and sort of poke around there. And I queued up, and about 10 minutes later, I was in there. My issue with Aachen was a huge lag problem. I couldn't defend myself more or less at all, and as a Shadow Priest, I'm pretty squishy anyway. So anytime I encountered anyone, even classes that I would normally just completely face roll, I couldn't do anything because the lag times were so massive. I was not alone in this. All over the general chat, everybody was talking about lag time. So I left after like 30 minutes. I just could not stand it. I'm a generally pretty patient player, but for me, Aachen lag times were so bad that I couldn't even really enjoy the content. So yeah, that is a massive issue with Aachen. And yeah, in terms of PvP in general, there's some pretty big issues right now. So PvP in Draenor, if you're a PvP player and thinking about coming back to Warlords of Draenor, wait about 6 months, then come in and see if things have gotten better. So that is everything with Warlords of Draenor, everything I want to talk about. Let's talk about bottom line conclusions. Questing and lore, fantastic, best they've ever been, in my opinion. Garrison, super fun, a few drawbacks, but not so many that I would say they hinder the awesomeness of the expansion. They actually contribute greatly to them. No flying, I'm completely okay with. Heroics and raids are both fantastic, even with the looking for raid nerf. I would still say they are absolutely fantastic, and PvP is absolutely abysmal at this point in the expansion. So I would say if I were to give this a rating out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, PvP being the half that really takes a hit for this expansion. Overall, if you are looking for a time to get back into Azeroth, this is it, especially with the level 90 character boost. You heard me right, level 90 character boost. You can jump back into Azeroth if you've been away for a while and go right into the new content, which is a fantastic feature, and you get a free one to boot. After the free one, you can pay to boost a character to level 90, so if you've always wanted to try a shaman, I know I have, I just never had the dedication to actually level one, get yourself a shaman, get that level 90 character boost, or maybe you just stop playing in Wrath, so you've got your level 70 character, I think it's 70, or was it 80, whatever level it was, character, sitting in Dalaran, and you don't know what to do with it. Jump back in, boost that character up to level 90, get into Draenor, and experience the awesome content. Fantastic time to get back into World of Warcraft. For my money, 9.5 out of 10, best expansion yet. Yes, I said it, the best. Again, you have to count off Burning Crusade if you're listening to me, because I only came in at the end of it. But it is much better than Wrath, which is my favorite expansion before this. It's much better than Wrath. It is much better than Kata, and much better than Mists of Pandaria. Warlords of Draenor, the best World of Warcraft expansion to date. I have been the Higgs from MMO Play. What do you think? Are you enjoying Draenor? Are you thinking of coming back to the game? I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know. That is my review, and I will see you guys next time.